What's good, y'all? Welcome back to another episode of In the Loop, Out the Mix. I'm your host, Jay's Two Cents, and I'm not even gonna hold y'all. I didn't even wake up feeling the best, but I did say every Sunday, so I'm keeping my word. Every Sunday, new episode. Doesn't matter if I gotta pull something out of the air. Like, we getting these episodes out, y'all. So, the same way that I woke up and I'm standing on business, whatever you got to stand on today, stand on it. Don't let no feelings get in the way. If you got to go to the gym, go to the gym. If you got to do some homework, do the homework. But stand on whatever you got to stand on, bruh, because we here. We here, all right? Now, if you couldn't already tell, today's episode is going to be on emotional baggage. Let it go or you won't grow. In the past few years, I've had a few people ask me questions like, how do I move on from fill in the blank? How do I let whatever go? Or here's a tough one for me, at least. Why do I feel stuck in the past? These are all questions that I've asked myself. And this was back in 2022, back when I got out of my first relationship. Man, it was rough. I'll say that much. First relationship, you go from, we did the kid thing to like talk about getting married and starting a family, all for it to come to an end one day. Like, that's tough. That is so tough. But as I was saying, these are all questions that I asked myself after that first breakup. And I have a little story with my own emotional baggage that I plan on telling you guys later in the episode. But right before things ended between my ex and I went to borrow a book from her mom because her mom, she had basically like a library. Like, she had this bookcase, and it had so many different books on it, so many different topics. That's why I said it was like a library, because even if she didn't have every book in the world, she had a book on almost every topic you could think of. And the one book that stuck out to me was called Forgiving What You Can't Forget by Lisa Turkus. I'm not sure if that's how you pronounce it, but that's her name. Lisa with the Y, by the way. And it was in this book that I really learned how forgiveness isn't just something that you give to other people. It's something you also give to yourself. And at first, I didn't understand it. It's like, forgiveness is something you get to yourself. Like, what do you mean? And I did the typical reactionary thing to do when someone brings up, yo, let it go, forgive. And I was thinking stuff like, I can't let them off the hook that easily. Like, I'm sure you've thought that to yourself one time or another when you had to forgive somebody for something they did to you. Like, yo, nah, bro, they did me dirty. I can't just let them slide like that. Or here's another one. But they did whatever, fill in the blank. How can I just let that go? What I want you all to know is that if you watched last week's episode, you know that I learned a lot of profound things in my very first speech class. And another thing that Professor McInnes taught us was that we are the sum of our experiences. And so when we hold on to the ways that people have done us wrong, when we hold on to all of the pain that we have from our past relationships, whatever it is whatever you can think of, right? When we hold on to these things, it can lead to bitterness and resentment. I'm sure we all know someone who, no matter what time of day it is, no matter what's doing, no matter what the function is, they're just sucking the life out of the room. Like, yo, why you always so bitter? Like, yo, why you always in a bad mood? Why you always got to kill the mood, bro? I've been that person before, so I know it firsthand. I know what it's like to be that person, and I know what it's like to be around that person. And 9 times out of 10, I'm no therapist, remember, but 9 times out of 10, I'm pretty sure it's because they're living in the past. They're holding on to these things that I just described. And that's like moving on to the next thing. Like, when you hold on to this bitterness and when you hold on to all that resentment towards whoever it is that did you wrong or whatever it is that happened, it can lead to a tainted reality. We have to remember, we have our truths, and then we have the actual reality we live in. Our truths are affected by our perception of reality. That's basically what our truth is, our perception of reality. And then there's just objective reality, the things that are actually true, the things that are actually factual. And so when we hold on to all this negativity, when we hold on to this pain, when we hold on to regret, whatever it is that you want to think of, when we hold on to that, it taints how we see reality. When we hold on to that, it can lead to things like trust issues and cynicism. Like, I'm sure you also know a person who they have all of these trust issues. Like that ex that I mentioned, one of the things that we butted heads on was the fact that she had trust issues. Granted, I wasn't the best boyfriend. I will own that. I will own that. I wasn't the best boyfriend. It's my first relationship. Cut me some slack, y'all. But she would be like, "Oh, I have trauma and so when you do XYZ, it reminds me of how such and such cheated on me in the past." And of course, like I said, I wasn't the best boyfriend. So it was on me to change my ways so that way I didn't trigger her. But at the same time, there'll be times where it felt like I genuinely wasn't doing anything wrong. And she would find a reason to get triggered. She would find a reason to like bring up her past. And it just got to the point where it felt like she was insufferable. Because it's like, even when I'm not doing something wrong, there's something wrong. And that's how it is in general with people who have trust issues. It's because they're holding on to all of the ways that people have done them wrong in the past that they can't even see the actual reality they're living in right now in the present as it is. It's like, think of it as a lens. You know how we have filters on our phones, filters on Instagram to like change how reality looks, right? When you hold on to your pain, it's like a filter for life. You're only seeing life through the pain that you're carrying with you. And that's where you have things like cynicism. You go online right now, go on Instagram, YouTube, like it doesn't matter what social media platform you use. Let there be something about relationships going on. You go to the comments, it's men and women going back and forth, back and forth. Niggas ain't shit. Women ain't shit. That's literally the comments of social media nowadays. Like it's like a battlefield going in those comments. That's why I stay out the comments, y'all. I don't like reading comments because it gets me triggered. All right. It gets me triggered. I don't read comments for that reason. But yeah, so the comments are filled with people who, because they're constantly living in the pain of the past, they're projecting that pain onto other people and they start generalizing about everybody. I know because I've been that dude. I almost went the incel route. By the grace of God, I am not an incel, bro. Oh my goodness, yo. I was very close to going that route of just harboring resentment towards women because of my failed relationship, of taking my anger out on, and I won't even lie. The first few months out of that relationship, people who followed my socials, they know I was on that red pill wave. I was on that, like, I was almost on that incel wave for real, dog. But yeah, I found my way out of that, like I said, by the grace of God. And when we take all of that into consideration, how we are the sum of our experiences and how holding on to negative experiences can affect how we see reality, that can also cause us to miss out on blessings, to miss out on new opportunities, on the beauty that is being in the present. And that brings me to that story that I said I would tell you guys about. And this is why I say that book, Forgiving What You Can't Forget. I don't know if I mentioned it in the first episode, but that book really did change my life. Not only was it the reason why I had my coming to Jesus moment, because that book is like, it's laced with scriptures all throughout. So I like came to the realization like, whoa, this is all like, all of these are Bible verses. Like the Bible is, I got to check the Bible out for myself. That's literally like the thought process I had while I was reading that book. I got to check the Bible out for myself if this is what it's telling me. And as I read the book, one of the things that it challenges its readers to do is to find one person. I can't remember how she worded it exactly because I read this book 2 years ago and I applied everything that I read 2 years ago. So it's kind of like it's hard to recall that knowledge. But it was something along the lines of find someone who you're harboring a lot of resentment for, who you're harboring a big grudge against, and tell them that you forgive them. Find that person, list out all of the ways that you feel they did you wrong, all of the ways that you feel they hurt you, that they didn't show up for you, whatever. List it all out, say it to them, and then at the end of that, tell them that you forgive them and mean it. Don't just say I forgive you and then turn your back around and then still continue to hold on to all of the ways that they hurt you. No, like sit down with that person, have a conversation, explain everything that you feel, and then tell them that you forgive them. And I did this with my father. Now, to give y'all a little backstory, I was raised a Jehovah's Witness. And so at a very young age, I learned that there was a lot of things that I couldn't do. And I didn't really have any explanation why. Like when my friends would have birthday parties and I'd get the invite and I couldn't go, I didn't know why. When it came time for holidays and all my friends were celebrating, I didn't know why. Like I would ask them and they'd be like, oh, because we can't, because we're serving Jehovah. We don't celebrate holidays. That was basically the answer from my parents. But as the father, you know, he had the role of like being more authoritative. You know, my mother was more nurturing. My father, though, he was like the Bible describes, like fathers are supposed to like rule with an iron rod, something like that. I'm not sure if fathers are the ones who are supposed to rule with an iron rod. It could be kings. I can't remember. All right. Like I can't recall from the top of my head, but my dad, he played his role the way that he was supposed to. He ruled over his household. He made sure that what he said went, so that way there was order in the house. And you know, looking back at it, I commend him for that because I could have been a much more wild child if it wasn't for that. But growing up, it just felt like I was so restricted. Like, as I grew older, it turned like not celebrating birthdays and not celebrating holidays turned into not being able to hang out with friends from school. And that kind of it kind of made me mad because when I couldn't hang out with my friends from school, I would ask to hang out with the friends from church and I couldn't even hang out with the friends from church. So then it's like, so I can't hang out with friends from school because they're too worldly. They're too worldly. And I can't hang out with friends from church. I would go home and I would play the game. And then he'd be like, oh, you're spending too much time on the game. You need to do your Bible study. And it's just like, yo, like at that point, I'm starting to, like as a child, I'm starting to get livid because it's like, yo, I can't hang out with friends. I can't hang out with friends from church. And now you're telling me that I can't play the game? Granted, I was playing the game all day. So, you know, I can see where he was coming from. But at the same time, it's like, I wouldn't be on the game as much if you let me do literally anything else. Anything else. And so this over years, like I'm talking about over years, it just led to me harboring a lot of resentment. So much so to the point where I wanted to get my name changed. Like that's how deep it was for me. Like because my dad, the story behind my name is J. Mixon Renee. And my father's name also has Mixon in it. And so when I hear my name as a child and the story behind my name, it's like, you name me after you and you giving me all these problems? All right, I'm going to change my name. Hey, I don't feel the same way anymore. But as a child, that's literally how I felt. Like, oh, you want to name me after you and give me all these problems? I'm going to change my name. And while that's just a small instance, that like mindset is literally what fueled me for like the next few years. When I got into my first relationship, it just got even worse because now at that point I started wilding out for the sake of, oh, all these years you kept me locked up in the house, not being able to do anything. All right, now I'm gonna go out with my girl and do this. I'm gonna go out and do that. I'm gonna stay out late. And I was wilding. And so fast forward a bit, I break up with the girl. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. That is so funny to me how that worked. So we break up and I'm reading this book and I realize like, yo, the past few years of my life have literally all been like fueled by negativity. Negativity surrounding my father in particular. And so I had one of two choices. I could either take everything that this book is saying, right, and apply it. I could sit down with my dad and tell him, hey, this is how you made me feel when I was younger. This is how I feel you didn't show up for me. This is how you hurt me in the past, and literally forgive him for it. Or I could continue down this path of holding everything in. Yeah, I chose the former option. I sat down with him. We had this talk. And don't get me wrong, when I was talking to him, y'all, I was so nervous. Like, I was so nervous. But I sat him down. I said everything I had to say. And then I said the words, I forgive you. I kid you not, y'all. When I said those words, I forgive you, those 3 words, it instantly, I mean instantaneously, I can't make this up. It felt like a giant weight was lifted off of my shoulders. It wasn't until I said those 3 words. As I was listing out all the stuff, I felt all the tension building up, building up, building up. It felt like it was harder to speak. It felt like my chest was getting tight. It felt harder to like enunciate my words. But once I said, I forgive you, like all of that just instantly left. And from that point on, it took a while. It actually took over maybe like a year and a half. But my relationship with my father improved. And as a result, my relationship with everybody else in the house improved because like it was mainly my dad that I was butting heads with. But saying those words, forgiving him for everything that I felt like he did to me, it basically gave us both a clean slate. It gave him a clean slate in the sense that I'm not holding anything else against him. Like all of that is water under the bridge now. And it gave me a clean slate in the sense that I'm not, like literally, I just said it. I'm not holding anything else against him. Like I've made the decision to let it go. I've made the decision to act like everything that he did just doesn't affect me. I was about to say didn't happen, but it did happen. Rather, it just doesn't affect me anymore. I'm not going to allow it to have the same effect over me anymore. I'm not going to allow it to have that power over me anymore, to dictate how I feel towards my father. The past is the past. I can continue to hold on to the past, or I can make the most of the present. And that's what I realized in that moment. And so I realized that by holding on to all of the ways that he made me feel in the past, I was blocking out any opportunity to enjoy the relationship I can have with him as an adult right now. So all of that brings me back to one of the questions that I asked in the opening of the episode. Why do you feel stuck in the past? Or why do you feel stuck in general? It's probably because you're doing one of the things that I listed here today. Now, I know you might be asking, do I really have to forgive to move forward? I want to let you know right now, you don't have to do anything if you don't really want to. But I do want you to ask yourself, like, what's the alternative? What's the alternative? Are you really going to allow what someone did to you a few years ago, a few days ago, whatever? Are you really going to allow that to continue to control how you enjoy your life? Because that's ultimately what happens when you hold on to all of that hurt. Because remember, I mentioned it. We're the sum of our experiences. We can either choose to carry all of the negative experiences that we have with us, or we can forgive what we can't forget and continue to try to make the most of our present. Continue to try to make the most out of the relationships we still have. Because to tell you the truth, y'all, living a life full of bitterness, resentment, regret, guilt. Some of these are new. I didn't mention those earlier. But a life of trust issues, a life of cynicism, that doesn't sound like a life worth living to me. It sounds like a miserable life. That's just me, though. So if you want to take a step in the right direction, a step in the direction of freedom, because that's what having that conversation with my father afforded me. It afforded me the freedom to be joyful with him, the freedom to enjoy his presence. You know how many people don't have both their parents in their lives right now? Whether it's like, no matter whatever the circumstances that change that situation for them. Like, I am beyond blessed to still have both my parents in my life. I realize that. And I'm not about to allow something that my dad did when I was in my childhood to affect the way that I see him while he's still in my life. And another thing that reading that book made me realize it is like, who are we? Like, ask yourself, who are you? Who are you to hold something that someone did to you in the past against them? Because if we really break it down, yes, some transgressions are worse than others. Some of the ways people do other people wrong are like egregious. But the underlying principle is that we're all human. We've all done something that warranted forgiveness from someone else. So who are we to hold something against someone else when we've done something that we needed forgiveness for? Who are we to hold something against someone else when God doesn't even hold our sins against us? He literally sent his son to die on a cross for our sins, for the sake of us having a relationship with him. So even when we sin against God, so long as we have a relationship with him, he doesn't hold it against us. So who are we to hold other people's transgressions against them when they do us wrong? I really want you to think about that. I really do. And I encourage you, if there's someone that popped up in your head as you were listening, if there's something that popped up in your head as you were listening, some experience, some person, or even yourself, if there's something that you can't forget that continues to dictate your reality, continues to warp your perception, I challenge you and encourage you to face it. Talk to that person. Sit them down. Write it out if you have to, but really talk out all of the ways that they might have hurt you, let you down, didn't show up for you, and tell them that you forgive them and mean it. Don't just sit them down, say all of that, and hope that just because you said it, it'll change something. You have to mean it. You have to commit to letting it go. Okay? Grow up. Yes, they hurt you, and you can't let that decide your reality forever. Okay? So please, sit them down, talk to them, forgive them, and take steps to move things in the right direction moving forward. Make the most of today. Make the most of the present. Please, I beg you, stop letting your past dictate your present and thereby your future. Okay? It's been your boy Jay, spreading his 2 cents, one part at a time. Until next time, I'm out, cuh.